Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my channel. If you are brand new here, welcome. I'm Bonnie, Old Soul Mermaid. Okay, I'm going to be doing a VR to a tag, and the tag is Top 10 Curiosity Decks, which was originally started by Candy of Candy, Soul, and Soil. So I've been watching a few of these videos, and they are really fun, and I tried my hardest to find decks that haven't really been shown or not shown as much. So we'll see if we succeed. I haven't seen all of them, but I did have fun going through my collection just to try to bring out some things that, yes, haven't been shown as much or, haven't been shown at all, at least in the videos that I have seen. Granted, I have not seen all of them. All right, up first is Granny's Postcards Lenormand, and it is published by Pentagram Publishing, and it is created by a Ukrainian deck creator. And I'm going to butcher the name, and I apologize, but it is Mykola Tarajeko. I know it's wrong. And this deck is just the sweetest little deck. And let me show you why. First of all, this box, in keeping with the vintage art and the vintage theme of postcards, something that's not really done, or postcards aren't really sent anymore. But then you open the box, and these Lenormand cards are much larger than a standard Lenormand card. Look at the little backs with the wax seal, and I think it's adorable. And then you get a Lenormand deck full of wonderful vintage art. Definitely some things that you could have seen in a catalog or, a magazine. Postcards, actually holiday cards. This is, I think, a semi-gloss cardstock, and you can see, yes, they are larger than normal Lenormand size, but you get all eras. You get Victorian art, you get some art, looks like from the 40s, maybe 50s, but it's quite wonderful. And I really, really enjoy this deck. And it's one I did an unboxing of when I got the deck, and I'll try to link it up below. I'll try to remember. But it's one that I haven't really seen on the interwebbings. Oh, look at this moon. It's so beautiful. And I really, really enjoy having this deck in my collection and using it. And look at this beautiful picture of the book. Oh, everything I love. Everything I love. And that is Granny's Postcards Lenormand. Moving right along, we have a little pocket-sized tarot deck that I purchased from Etsy. It is the Vintage Illustrated Art Tarot deck by Bobby Alexander. And as you can see, look at these glorious backs. And this is more Lenormand size, but it is a pocket tarot deck. And I think you can still get this off of Etsy. I think he raised his price a little bit to $30 for this deck, but I paid $25 for it. And you can see it is quite unique. Now, I purchased this deck because at the time I was thinking of getting the Victorian Tarot deck by Tarot Studios. But I had watched some walkthroughs of it, and many people had some issues with production, uneven borders, and they said that the response, when they contacted Tarot Studios, the customer service is a little bit subpar. That was their experience. So I kind of held off because, you pay a lot of money for those decks. And when you do that, you want your deck to be perfect. Especially if you're buying it brand new, you're paying for shipping. I believe the shipping is overseas, if you're here in the US. So I got this little deck to scratch the itch. It has a lot of Victorian illustrations, and I find that it does. I still would like to find, I go back and forth. I don't even know if you can still get that Victorian tarot deck by Taroko Studios, but if I don't ever get it, I'm okay with that because I have this deck. It's easily portable. The cardstock, I would say, you know, it's like standard make playing cards cardstock, so it shuffles really well, easily portable. It does scratch that itch for me in lieu of the other deck, and it's everything I love. Vintage art, Victorian art, Edwardian art. Yeah, this is totally my jam. And that is the Vintage Illustration Tarot Deck by Bobby Alexander. I will say that he also has a vintage illustrated tarot deck in color, and I have that one as well, but this is the one I decided to show you. All right, the next deck, actually it's decks in my curiosity cabinet. I'm cheating a little bit here because these two decks are basically the same. They're just different editions, and let me show you what I mean. And they are the Mermaid type tarot and the Mermaid type tarot party edition. Now here are the backs. Now when I flip these over, you're going to see that the deck is basically the same but different, if that makes sense. This was a Kickstarter way back in 2020, and the deck creator is Mitra Klein. And you'll see that the regular edition, all the images are against a black background, whereas in the party edition, you get more color. Now, this was created by Mitra Klein, and I guess the purpose of this deck was it's supposed to deal with intimate relationships and depth psychology. I had these two decks very generously given to me by a wonderful viewer and subscriber. Now, from what I know of the creator is dyslexic. So she created this deck kind of in response to some of her issues that she's had, but you can see a lot of this is paintings, art, digital art. There is some sculpture art too, mixed media. You can see that they're the same but different. If you look at the Justice card here, you have elements of the same. This is meant for intuitive use, for intuitive readings. As you can see, it very much goes its own way. Let me know in the comments below if you have either one of these editions or if you've worked with it. I'd like to know what your experience with it has been. I haven't been able to have a meaningful dialogue with either of these decks. I do find that I do resonate more with the party edition, but if I want to do intuitive readings, I have to work with this deck. I find I have to work a little bit with it. There's another deck I have in my collection though that I just love for intuitive readings, and I'm going to show that deck to you right now. The Surrealist Tarot by Los Scarabeo. Now, I did a full unboxing of this deck on my channel, which I'll try to remember to link in the cards. It's one that I haven't seen a lot of love for on YouTube or TarotTube, but I have grown to love this deck, especially for intuitive readings. Now, this deck is based on surrealistic art of the surrealist artists, and the creator of this deck, Luigi Di Giamarino, I hope I pronounced that right, this is his take on the surrealist artworks. It's quite wonderful, and I think if you're looking for a purely intuitive deck, or if you're looking for a great deck for dream work, this is your baby. Well, actually, it's mine, but And I realize it's artwork that may not resonate with everybody, but I love this deck. I've grown to love this deck, and I have bonded with it. And I could say that this deck is a deck that is always going to stay in my cabinet of curiosities. Just look at this. And what's wonderful is that it's an easily accessible mass market deck, but still, it has the air of a deck that you would find in a curiosity shop, an old thrift shop, something tucked away, something old. Just with a cursory flip through the cards, you can see that it holds a lot of hidden meaning, a lot of hidden messages. It's a wonderful, wonderful deck. That is the Surrealist Tarot. What am I going to be pulling out of my curiosity cabinet next? The Tarot of Unknown Shadows by Dark Cinnabar. This is a very, very beautiful deck, as you can see, with the antique gold and the antiquing and the distressing. It's a beautiful, beautiful deck. And it comes with 2 extra cards, Shadow and Light, as you can see. This showed up in one of my recent deck decluttering videos, and I will tell you now that it has found a new home. I'm going to be probably mailing it off in the next couple of days. This deck has everything I love in a tarot deck: vintage art, distressing, kind of that unique otherworldly spirit quality to it. But I had an unfortunate experience when I first got this deck, and it's not this particular deck. The first deck I ordered came with a couple of missing cards. The box came in rough condition, and my dealings with the creators in trying to get a replacement was subpar, to say the least, and it just soured me on this deck. And I tried to work with it, and I can't. And when I want this type of artwork, if I want this kind of vibe, I will readily go and reach for my Relative Tarot by Carrie Paris and my Antiquarian Tarot by Marie Bento. One of those two will always take precedence over this one. Now, I don't know if to say, if I did not have such a sour experience with the creators of this deck, it took me months and months to get a replacement. And it was only after reporting them to Etsy that the ball started moving, and then it was still months and months. If that hadn't happened, I don't know if I would have been able to have some kind of a relationship with this deck. I think it's beautiful. I love looking at these old photographs. So beautiful. This is late Victorian and Edwardian photographs. Beautiful. Actually, this here is 1920s. Yeah, I just love it. And you can see it would be obviously something that you would see sitting in a curiosity cabinet. So much that's wonderful about this deck. So much. But sadly, it's going to be leaving my curiosity cabinet. And it's going to a good home. So this is the Tarot of Unknown Shadows by Dark Cinnabar. Next, we have a mass market oracle deck, which I just showed on one of my recent videos, which I will link up in the cards here. The reason why I'm showing it is because Lisa Papez commented on seeing that deck in my in my video and she said, oh my gosh, I should have added this to my curiosity deck video. So she gave me the inspiration, and also it's one of the reasons why I decided to do this tag. So here's the deck, the Vintage Wisdom Oracle by Victoria Mosley. This was an early Oracle deck acquisition, very early in my tarot journey. I was inspired by all the wonderful walkthroughs of this deck on TarotTube. This deck, oh my gosh, this deck has everything I love. And it's just, again, another wonderful deck to do ancestor work, spirit work. It's a great deck to work for shadow work, you know, in conjunction with another, with a tarot deck. This goes with so many of my decks. It's really a workhorse deck for me. And I haven't trimmed the borders like so many have. I don't like to trim borders. I like to keep my decks, you know, in their pretty much in their original state as I get them. I have edged a few of my decks, but I have not trimmed any of them. And this is a very, very large deck, as you can tell. But because the cardstock is great US Games cardstock, I can shuffle it quite easily, you know, with my sideways shuffle. But there is nothing to me more beautiful than these images. The collage work in this deck is so masterful. This deck just reaches deep into my soul, and I love this deck, and I will forever have it in my collection. But as you can see, yes, it's got that otherworldly aesthetic to it. Oh gosh, again, I just love the Waterhouse art. It may not be everybody's cup of tea, but it is definitely mine, and I think it's the most beautiful, beautiful of creations. And this is the Vintage Wisdom Oracle by Victoria Mosley. All right, going back to my curiosity cabinet, the next deck to be pulled out is the Infernal Tarot by Eric Pullett. This deck was a Kickstarter deck that I backed, and it was back, I believe, in 2019. So, you know, kind of early in my tarot journey. I was attracted to the deck and the campaign. These are the wonderful backs and the beautiful bronze edging. The deck is on wonderful linen cardstock. Now, it took me a while to work with this deck because when I got it, it did have a heavy, heavy chemical smell. I don't know if that was from the printing or if that was from the edging, but I had to leave it sitting out for quite a while for the smell to go away. And I can still smell a little bit of it. And that kind of kept me from delving in for a long while. And how can I not include this next deck? It is the 5-Cent Tarot by Madame Clara. This happens to be the 2nd edition deck. I also have a 1st edition. Look at that. There's just so much whimsy in this deck. This one happens to have the robin egg blue backing, and I've got some, I guess you could call that rose gold edging. It looks kind of yellow on my phone. But it would be really fun to think, okay, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, what would it be like to find this deck in a curiosity shop? I think you would definitely find this, and it would be highly desirable. I mean, just look at this. This is a great deck if you want to start playing around with reversals, because yeah, you turn it over and you have some keywords. Now, for a beginner, this might be a little bit busy in the imagery, but you do get the help with the keywords and just everything, the animals, the ephemera, everything. So well done. This is really, really a fun deck to work with. If you're so inclined to work with this type of art, this mixed media collage, it's very, very masterfully done, but it is one of those decks that kind of takes you back to days of yore. And if you're somebody who likes going through old thrift shops and curiosity shops, you would really, really appreciate this deck. And I think it's still available. There is a oracle to go with it. The name is escaping me, and I think it's still available. I will leave a link in the description box below. Let me know in the comments below if you have this deck, either one of the editions, and if you're still using it. All right, I'm going to cheat just a little bit because I cannot separate these two decks from one another. Okay, so because I use them as one, and so I kind of consider them as one deck. And they are the Stretch Tarot and Stretch Lenormand by Joseph E. Stretch. Many of you are familiar with the Stretch Tarot, maybe less familiar with the Lenormand. I've done unboxings of both, and I'll try to remember to link them above. But the Stretch Tarot is another deck that I find would rival the Tarot of Unknown Shadows, again, because of the old collage work, the old photographs, and it's something I would definitely reach above the Tarot of Unknown Shadows. And that's why the Tarot of Unknown Shadows is being rehomed. But I find that I have a different dialogue with this deck as opposed to my Relative Tarot and my Antiquarian Tarot, which are much beloved vintage collage decks of mine. I find it because the collage work is much more raw and messy and dirty, but I'm saying these words in a wonderful way. That's what I want. And you know, you get the smudginess. Look at this Lenormand. Look at this. And I love how you have the corresponding playing card inset, and then you have the, you know, dictionary. And in some of the cards, actually, the word is circled in some of them, like here, bouquet, and you probably won't be able to see, but that circle in the dictionary, you know, he collaged this mixed media style, and there's bouquet. I just love the way he did this. And do you see how it's very raw, kind of messy and kind of dirty, very shadowy? And I find that this deck is much more shadowy than my other two beloved vintage collage art decks. And that's why I love it. Both the Lenormand and the Tarot deck, and I use them together. This is my oracle that I use for this. I have used the Vintage Wisdom Oracle with this, but definitely, you know, I want to use the Lenormand with it, and that's chiefly what I use. Let me know in the comments below what your experiences have been with the Stretch Tarot. And if you're a lover of vintage collage art decks, where does it fall on your list? If you happen to have the Relative Tarot and or the Antiquarian Tarot. I love this deck, and it took me quite a while to decide to purchase it because I had already fallen in love with the other two, but I'm so glad I did. And that is the Stretch Tarot and the Stretch Lenormand by Joseph E. Stretch. Okay, I'm down to the last deck, I think. Again, this is going to be a little bit of a cheat because I cannot separate these decks from one another. They're kind of one and the same. And they are the Memento Mori Lenormand and Oracle deck and the expansion packs. We have the General Expansion Pack, and again, we have the General Expansion Pack number 2, and which focuses on folk magic. And we have the Ancestors and Advisors pack. And at the time I'm filming this, I'm expecting sometime soon the Timing pack. I pre-ordered the Timing pack, so that's going to be coming sometime in the summer. As you can see from the backs, these are meant to be used together. Mix them up any way that you want. Sometimes you may just use the main deck with the Ancestors deck. Sometimes you may use one of the other expansion packs. Maybe you'll combine all the expansion packs together. There's so many different ways you can use this, and I view it pretty much as one deck. And I've separated them all here just to show you, but you could make one huge deck. But because, you know, the original deck already has, I think, like 80 cards, I choose to use one of the others with it. And sometimes I'll combine these three and just use that. It depends. There's so many different ways to play. But you can see the aesthetic is the same. And a lot of people have been showing the Antique Anatomy deck in their videos, and I have that deck too, but because it's been shown quite a bit, I'm not going to show it here, even though I have it and I use it a lot with this system here and these decks here, because they work perfectly together, as you can see. And so the cheat is because I can't really separate them. The one thing I will notice is that the saturation of the main deck is a little bit deeper than the expansion packs, but you know, really the aesthetic has stayed the same. And to me, I view it kind of as one deck. But how wonderful. You can see if you found any one of these, any one of the expansion packs, the main deck in a curiosity cabinet, kind of tucked away in an old curiosity shop, thrift shop, at an estate sale, in an old cabinet at an estate sale. Yeah, this fits that bill. I'm a big Claire Goodchild fan, by the way, and if you haven't been listening to her Memento Mori podcast, she goes over, she hasn't gone through the whole deck, but she's done some episodes where she goes deep into the symbolism and the symbology of the deck, and it's fascinating. High production value. It's just, you just listen to it and it's like story time. It's so well done. All right, so this is the Memento Mori Oracle deck with the expansion packs. So I very much hope you enjoyed looking at my cabinet of curiosity decks. Let me know in the description box below, what are your top 3 decks that you have in your tarot cabinet of curiosities? If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting a like, a subscribe, hitting the notification bell. All of these things help this very small channel to grow and helps push out my videos to a wider audience. Okay, with that, thank you so much for spending time with me, and I will let you get on with your beautiful day. Bye for now.